Hello, can folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, well, I've got 10:15. Let's go ahead and get started. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and to listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings held twice monthly. And we've got 5 items on our agenda for the work session. We're going to add an additional item, which would be an update from CFM advocates. And we'll do that right after the county manager update. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to our county manager, Don Boone.
Thank you, Chair Quirlo, members of the board. Good morning. For my county update, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the revolving agenda that we're going to talk about weekly now at the board work sessions. We have it up on the screen just to kind of show you. We don't necessarily have to have a long conversation about today. I just wanted to kind of identify how we use this and then having the board kind of look at it and see if there's topics as we move out during this 8-week period that your board might want us to be populating on the agenda calendar. So at the top, we have work session items that are scheduled. Of course, there's always flexibility in those out sessions. Oftentimes we think something's going to happen on a certain date and it doesn't. But so there is flexibility. So you have the work session items, and then we have the actual business items, which start with the proclamations, consent items, business agenda, and the public hearings. If you can scroll down a little bit, Teresa. We also have what we call as kind of a parking lot, which is some additional meetings for the board, and then sometimes the parking lot will have topics that we haven't scheduled yet but are on the radar screen. And so as we move forward with this, we will have conversations with your board to really talk about what is upcoming, and then what are some topics that the board might want us to be adding. As your board is keenly aware of, time is a scarce commodity, and so making sure that these work sessions are useful and productive for your board, because we have the work sessions to really serve the board's governing process. And so as we go through this, we just want to make sure that they fully serve the governing part of your function. So that's all that I really had for today, but we send these out weekly to your board, and then we'll start talking about them during the actual work session. So I'm happy to answer any questions about these before we move on.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. I see Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Well, County Manager, I think this is an excellent idea. I know that some members have voiced concerns about inadequate opportunity to discuss items. Chair Quila, are you thinking that we will be, I want to say, flexible and adaptive about the time frame? Because I don't know what all of my colleagues want to have to say about any particular topic.
I absolutely, Commissioner Thompson. I do think we want to allow opportunity for discussion on a number of these items, and I think we want to make sure everyone's aware of the topics well in advance. And I do appreciate County Manager introducing this today, and it kind of comes at a good time when we were talking about this at our last meeting. So yeah, I think this will be an excellent tool for us to promote discussion and to make sure that we've got the right topics on our radar.
And Chair Quila and members of the board, as you look at this and there are topics that you're interested in, if you could just let me, Teresa, Chair Quila know, then we can add it to the agenda so that next time you see it, you will see where those areas are on the agenda. So one other quick update, Chair, if that is okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I just wanted to mention that I was at the Port of Astoria commission meeting last night. They were considering the Georgia Pacific Strategic Investment Plan agreement. As I've mentioned, statute requires that if the SIP is in a port district area, then the port also has to approve the agreement. So the Port Commission did consider it last night, and they unanimously approved the SIP agreement. So that will be coming into your board on the 28th. But I just wanted to let you know that it has been to the Port Commission. And then if we're going to add one more agenda item real quick here. We have a very full agenda and a lot of very substantive topics. So what I will say is that I think Ryan is on, Ryan, and I'm not sure who's on, Zach might be on too from CFM. I don't necessarily see this as being a long agenda period, but I just wanted to allow them to give you a little bit of overview of where we are with the session. If there are specific bills that you want us to kind of update and track, we will do that. And I would say just let Amanda know, and we will go ahead and do that work. So, but if CFM is on, welcome. And if you could just give us a brief update, Isaac. Aaron, a brief update of where we are, that would be great.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Don. Good morning to, it looks like we've got 3 of the commissioners on here. So just a brief update here. We are officially, as of today, at the halfway point of the short session. So this is day 18 of 35. So hopefully it's all downhill from here. But I think the 2 major issues that I'm sure you're all aware of are going to be the housing package that the governor has promoted, and then also Measure 110 reform. So before I get into that, I know Commissioner Thompson and I don't see Commissioner Bangs on here, but both of you testified on Senate Bill 1556 last week in the Joint Committee on Transportation. That passed out unanimously yesterday out of committee. So it now goes to Ways and Means for, to mix into the budget soup. Given its list of supporters, I was just looking at the bill there, and Commissioner Thompson, I'm happy to take the questions now before we move on to other stuff.
I made the specific ask of the committee chairs and co-chairs that this bill be funded, this study be funded with general fund dollars. Was that issue addressed at all? Not like I'm the boss of them, but I asked nicely.
It's not, but given the makeup of the budget outlook right now, there's not a ton of bonding capacity either in lottery or general obligation. So most of what gets funded this session is going to be through general fund. So it's very, we're agnostic to the color of money, but these sorts of asks generally are a general fund type of thing. The bonding is more reserved for, your capital improvements, your infrastructure projects, so on and so forth. And then on the housing side of things, so the governor's policy package passed out of the Senate, or the Senate Housing Committee earlier or late last week. So that is it creates a new state agency. There's some other mandatory adjustments that local governments will have, mainly cities, will have to accept from developers. There was some kind of last minute changes to the bill. They moved the funding component out of it and put it in another bill. So there's about $100 million of investments in mainly water and sewer infrastructure that we're likely to see. Unfortunately, none of those are going to any cities in Clatsop County as of now. That list was put together by Representative Gomberg and some other folks. All of the projects right now are capped at $3 million. And so while folks are appreciative of the money that is going out the door, $100 million is the drop in the bucket in terms of what is needed statewide, right? We know cities in Clatsop County are in dire need of much larger sums of money to really get some of these projects off the ground. There will be another, hopefully more robust conversation around funding infrastructure in the 25 session when we're back in a 2-year budgeting cycle. That's generally when the bigger investments are made. So even to see $100 million in a short session is unusual, but we'll dip into reserves, and the other piece of the reserves that will be dipped into, I'll pass it over to Ryan for a kind of quick brief on the Measure 110 stuff.
Hey, Commissioners, Ryan Gleason with CFM. There are some changes coming to the ballot Measure 110 conversation. They are shifting away from kind of the direction in the -1, and they're moving towards what is called a Class U misdemeanor. There's also going to be a significant funding package that comes along with it. And I know there's some interest in medication-assisted treatment in jails. And so that is part of the conversation for funding. We have not seen any language. The committee was canceled both times this week. We expect to see language either today or tomorrow, and then to potentially move out of the joint committee next week. And so there are some other details that have come up, but until we see actual language, I don't want to spread rumors on what we think or have heard might be in it without knowing the details.
And just to piggyback on Ryan, what we're hearing, as she says, no rumors. What we're hearing is that this will look very similar to what LOC, AOC, sheriffs, and chiefs kind of proposed prior to session. Not tracking exactly, but likely moving back towards in that direction.
And our understanding is that the DAs, sheriffs, LOC, they have all signed off on this in kind of, this looks good, move forward with the drafting. My understanding is the only person that has said, nope, I don't like this, is DA Kevin Barton out of Washington County.
I know our sheriff's on. Sheriff, did you have any comments at this time?
The report that we've got from our lobbyist is very similar to what you just heard. So yeah, I think we're trending in the right direction. And I've heard there's been bipartisan support, and I celebrate that both parties are getting along for an issue.
And we think, just to add to that, that no one wanted to change course on Class A versus Class C to say, oh, we didn't do this, or because they wanted it. And so we have a feeling it'll move towards the Class U misdemeanor.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff. Any questions? Commissioner Toyoka, Commissioner Thompson?
Well, I don't know what a Class U misdemeanor is. Is that quickly answered by the sheriff or someone?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Thompson. That's an unclassified misdemeanor. There's already lots of those out there. And what I think this package is going to do is going to give the tools we need from other levels of crimes, but package it into a name that I think is palatable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's closer to a Class A than anything else.
Okay.
The words that were used when we were briefed on it was that it's functionally a Class A. I will let the sheriff determine if that is the case, but it was shared with us that it's functionally a Class A.
That's my understanding as well. Yes.
Okay, any other questions at this time? All right, Zach, Ryan, do you have anything else?
No,
Those are the
just,
major updates.
Feel free to be in touch if anybody needs anything. We're happy to help.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you advocating for us, and yeah, we'll be in touch.
Thanks,
See
everyone.
you soon. Thanks so much. Next item is the Behavioral Health Resource Network funded community partners on page 3 of the agenda. And our Assistant County Manager, Monica Steele.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for letting us present on this. I think it's kind of fitting given that you just wrapped up with a Measure 110 conversation, and the Sheriff will be touching a little bit more on some of that conversation as well in our presentation. Teresa, I'm going to share my screen now, if that's okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me get from the beginning. So today we're going to be presenting on the Behavioral Health Resource Network, also known as BURN. The county, sorry, my mouse is not wanting to proceed. The county is working, oh, sorry, Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Can you make it so that the only slide, just change your mode of presentation so that only your slide is highlighted? It just makes it larger in my screen.
Just choose
Here.
from beginning, top left.
I have it from beginning but I don't know what you're all seeing. Are you
We're
just seeing
We're
this?
seeing all the side slides also.
I don't know how to,
Okay.
sorry,
Another growth experience to be had.
yeah, I've clicked from
Monica.
beginning, so I'm not sure.
Monica, if you click the bottom right, the blue microphone, right above it, the blue microphone, bottom right,
Okay.
click right above it. No, not the microphone, above
Oh.
that microphone, above the microphone, click that.
And what is it?
Click it. And then, well, that should do it. Now slide that cursor to the right. Maybe that'll do it. Usually the presentation,
Sorry.
it's getting worse. I apologize.
Okay.
Go back to where it was.
Thanks for trying.
Okay, I apologize. So our topics that we're going to go over today is the Measure 110 overview, the funding streams that facilitate this grant, our community partners and some of their successes that they will be speaking to, and then challenges and next steps. And so just a reminder in regards to the Measure 110, the purpose of the Drug Addiction Treatment and Recovery Act of 2020 was to make the health assessment, treatment, and recovery services for drug addiction available to all who need and want access to those services. And so in this approach, they adopt a healthy approach to drug addiction by removing criminal penalties for low-level drug possession. And we'll speak to some of the challenges that this has created in future slides. So these funds were appropriated to OHA, the Oregon Health Authority, and it's a mixture of funds. Some has been appropriated by legislation. Some is funds that have been collected from the marijuana tax. Some are funds that are allocated from the criminal fine accounts. And then there's also money that's just deposited from other sources. And this is all allocated through OHA. We have a number of community partners who are providing different types of services. And so the services overall that the BURN is funding are screening and comprehensive behavioral health needs, individualized intervention planning, low barrier substance use disorder treatment, harm reduction services, peer support services, housing supports, and supported employment. And so as you can see on this screen here, harm reduction is being provided by public health. Housing is being provided by CCA, Helping Hands, the Iron Tribe Network. Peer support is being provided by the Morrison Group and Providence Seaside Hospital Foundation through their BOB program. And then CBH is providing all of these services. And so when we talk about the funding that has been allocated, the county was awarded $6.2 million for all of our community partners. And so as you can see, Clatsop Behavioral Health and Clatsop Community Action were, along with Helping Hands Reentry and Iron Tribe, were each allocated over $1 million. And a lot of that has to do with the types of services that they're providing. So CBH is providing all of the services. Clatsop Community Action is also providing a number of services, including the housing piece. Helping Hands and Iron Tribe are also both providing housing supports. And as we all know, housing, especially when you're talking about housing that has wraparound services, included in it is very expensive. And then Clatsop County Public Health is doing the harm reduction. Morrison is providing peer support, and Providence is also doing peer support and outreach. Sorry, my mouse is not cooperating with me this morning. So I'm going to give each of our community partners a couple minutes just to kind of speak to some of the success stories that they've each had. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask Lisa McLean from the Clatsop County Public Health if she could take a couple minutes and just share a success story that Public Health has realized.
Monica, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So good morning. So Clatsop County Department of Public Health, we received $267,000 for the burn grant funding. And this funding is supporting of our harm reduction program, which is a comprehensive approach that works to mitigate the harmful consequences of substance use. Services are implemented that are grounded in science and that are demonstrated through evaluation measures to be effective in decreasing harm caused by substance use, such as overdose deaths, sexually transmitted infection, and then hepatitis C. So our funds are used to cover staffing, education, safer use supplies, and also naloxone purchases. We've increased our outreach to provide naloxone to underserved areas of our county. We've also partnered with Clatsop Behavioral Health to have a Prime Plus peer at our outreach events, and we're offering hepatitis C screening, education resources, no-cost flu and COVID vaccines, naloxone, and then also offering those referrals to treatment and recovery services. So if we encounter an individual that screens positive for Hep C, they can elect to enroll in a program called PATH, and it's an acronym for Peer Assisted Telehealth, and they can receive treatment for their hepatitis C. This program is in collaboration with OHA and OHSU, and it's currently in 16 Oregon counties. The PATH program was implemented in Clatsop County in the fall of 2023 and has successfully enrolled. We've got 3 clients right now that begin 12-week course of daily antibiotic treatments for the cure for hepatitis C. So what the burn grant funding has done for public health is that the funding of these different agencies has made it possible for collaboration and to assist individuals with housing, access to recovery services, and then health screenings. Once a person has that stable housing, their chronic health needs can be addressed, and then treatment can be implemented in a supportive environment. Clatsop County Department of Public Health, in 2023, we distributed over 1,600 doses of naloxone to the community, and we've been able to increase our outreach capabilities to include the Hep C screening and offer the treatment. Plus, we've been able to provide more education and resources to those underserved areas of our county with this burn grant funding.
Thanks, Lisa. I apologize. Apparently, none of my slides were even progressing for you all. And so hopefully you can all see the successes page now. And so I'm going to ask Amy Baker or Ben Paz with Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare to provide an update on some success stories that you all had with this funding.
Thanks, Monica. Yeah, so essentially, like, we were able to hire somewhere around 5 employees, and part of the burn funding went towards opening our step shelter in Seaside, and it's also allowed us to do medication-assisted treatment in the jail. A particular success story is that we had a client who was sort of in and out of the jail system, homeless, and we were able to get that client into our STEP program, and from the STEP program into more permanent housing, at which point he was able to secure a job, and is now actively working his recovery. He's fully engaged in treatment services with us. You know, recovery is a lifelong journey. Doesn't mean he's necessarily cured, but he's definitely doing better. Since 2023, we've done about 118 outreaches into the jail with our recovery allies. We're intending to make that connection even more solid so that when people discharge from the jail, we're there to greet them so that there isn't that moment in time where somebody has to decide whether they're going to go back to using versus having somebody show up, help them get their ID, take them out for lunch, and do all the things that we know are going to work in order to bridge the gap there. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Viviana with Clatsop Community Action.
Oh, thank you, Monica. Hi, it's Viviana. So we received burn fundings for housing, and we had implemented it 2 different ways. One is to create Esperanza Village in Seaside, which will be providing 15 to 30 beds for single individuals transitional housing. And hopefully will get completed. We'll open up the village by mid-2024. And then the other one, we receive fundings for rental assistance, deposit assistance, which we have helped about a little bit over 100 people with our rental assistance program. And then when talking about one specific success story, to us, to CCA, it has been the way the partners have worked together to provide wraparound services to our community. To us, that's one of the most successful stories that I can share with all of you. So thank you.
Thanks, Viviana. Josh with Helping Hands.
Thank you, Monica. Since we have come into the burn grant here, we've been operating Day Center Navigation Center at 1530 South Roosevelt. We've helped about 436 unique clients. We've been serving breakfast and lunch, as well as offering showers and laundry services for folks. We've served about 16,000 meals since we've opened. We'll be adding 24 low barrier emergency shelter beds, hopefully before the end of March. And in a success story, he was very excited for me to share his experiences. Young man named Joel, who was homeless about 20 years and living at Mill Pond, came in for day services, used the center for about a month, was able to be navigated. You know, he had his wallet stolen, had no ID, no place to make a start. Didn't have anywhere ability to get mail, or we navigated him to our longer term reentry program in Astoria. He is now an employee for us at the center, and is helping other people change their lives. And it's been really awesome to watch.
Thank you, Josh. Francesca with the Iron Tribe Network.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So Iron Tribe Network was new to this area when Measure 110 started. So we opened a transitional recovery house on Youngs River Road that's fully Measure 110 funded back in April of 2023. And since that time, we've served 17 clients, which included couples, individuals, and parents working to reunite with their children. It is clean and sober housing, but our approach is a little unique. So we don't require long periods of abstinence prior to entry into the program. And we work with clients who have relapsed while in the program to develop support plans that allow them to restabilize in their recovery and remain in housing. We've had quite a few really inspiring success stories since opening. We had 2 parents who were admitted without custody of their children, who regained custody while in housing. Both found stable employment, both got vehicles and just moved into their own apartment. We've had a couple of people transition directly from jail with significant suspended sentences and stabilize, find employment, and remain clean and sober while in housing. And then probably one of, I think, the most inspiring stories was in November. We had a 47-year-old man move in who had congestive heart failure and had been chronically homeless since the age of 14. He was living in a tent in Astoria. He's become an integral part of our community. He expresses immense gratitude for the support every step of the way. And since admission, his heart function has increased from 24% to 35%. And he was reaccepted to his heart-related medical program, which he had been previously discharged from due to methamphetamine use. And his doctor reported that she believes him having stable housing and access to basic needs has directly accounted for the improvement to his condition. So we've had a lot of great stories. We've also received a ton of support and collaboration from all of the Bern community partners. So we've just had a really, really good experience here.
Thanks, Francesca. And I don't believe Caitlin from the Morrison Group is on the call. And so I'm going to go ahead and Christian, would you like to present or would you like me to share your successes?
I can do it, Monica.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Christian Mendoza. And so with the Bern funds, we were able to hire a peer support specialist, like Monica mentioned. And she wrote up like a client success story as well. And I'll just sort of summarize it. But it was a woman who had also been struggling with substance use disorder, homelessness, mental health issues for many years, and would just chronically check into the emergency department, just really struggling to get her basic needs met and get sober. And, after one of the last times that she was admitted to the emergency department, was basically told by hospital staff, you're going to die if you continue to use. And so it was sort of a wake-up call. She started really engaging more with our peer support specialist and decided to walk into Helping Hands Reentry Outreach Center to just sort of find more stability and get sober. And so our peer support specialist was able to support her through that, walk her through, like she would make, I'm blanking on the term, but some sort of art thing, and she would sell at the markets. And that was something that was, she was struggling to sort of do stuff like that because of the mental health. So our peer support specialist was just sort of able to help her stabilize and do some of those things. And in December, the client reported being 4 months sober, which was the longest she'd been sober for about 10 years. So she's doing well, and we really, really feel like Bern Funding has helped our peer support specialist support many clients in the community.
Thanks, Christian. So I think having all of our community partners go through some of the success stories, and this is just some of them that they've seen, show not just the success of the funding that they've received, but also just how well our community partners are all working together. We meet on a monthly basis because we're all referring partners to one another. And so this coordinated effort is essential to kind of help see through all of those successes. Some of the success stories that were provided in your board packet, specifically with the Iron Tribe, go to show all the partnerships between CCA, CBH, the jail, Clatsop Community Action, the BOB program. And so, so it's great to see all of our community partners working together. That being said, it doesn't mean that there aren't challenges that we're facing. And I just want to make sure that everybody can see the slide that says challenges currently. Can you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So one of the big challenges that we have that you are all probably aware of is that we do not have any detox facilities in the county, and we don't have any treatment facilities. And so it's difficult for the county to refer outside of the county due to limited bed availability, even in other counties, specifically around those treatment beds. And so being able to go through detox is a challenging process. And so if you go through detox and then you don't have those treatment beds to be able to transition to, then you're already one step behind on being able to kind of move forward. But then even once you have individuals getting out of treatment facilities, as everybody's aware, Clatsop County is lacking all types of housing. And so it's really difficult for somebody who has had the fortune of being able to go to a treatment facility if they don't have housing, stable housing to be able to transition into, because then more often than not, they end up back on the street where part of the easiest way for them to be able to survive being out there is relying on those self-prescribed substances. So having a network of referral sources as well as a three-pronged approach in regards to detox, treatment, and housing is essential, and it's a step that is still lacking despite the funding that has been contributed towards these efforts. Moving on, I'm going to go ahead and let the sheriff now speak, as well as Kelly with juvenile, if he has anything to add in regards to some of the challenges that law enforcement is facing, specifically around the implementation of Measure 110. Sheriff?
All right, thanks, Monica. Before I go down this list, and I'll try to keep it short, I just want to make an observation that I think for a long time, law enforcement was the safety net for all public health issues that the state wasn't willing to fund and address. And Measure 110 was when the voters basically said, we don't want law enforcement to be that safety net anymore. And so that's where we find this list of challenges. You know, at the violation level, it's really difficult to expand a stop. And so what I mean is, if you have a crime, you can use reasonable suspicion to stop someone and then kind of go into a search if there's enough. At a violation, it's actually, you need to have probable cause. Now, you'd think that someone that is currently under the influence, that has had many, you know, busts for having possession would get you to probable cause, but that is not the case. It is, you have to be able to say more likely than not currently this person actually has drugs on them. So that's been why there's not been a lot of enforcement of the violation, the e-violation. And then too, there's also risk, you know, if say someone even has a violation of level of drugs in their hands and they run off, it'd be unwise to chase them because the governmental interest is low. If they trip and break a leg or you tackle them, they knock a tooth out, you're going to be subject to a lot of civil liability because the outcome was not worth a $100 ticket. The appellate court decisions, McCarthy, that made it so 30 years of case law was overturned, and how we can expand a search of a vehicle. Now, if we have probable cause that there's unlawful things in a vehicle, we need to write a McCarthy warrant, which is a search warrant to seize the vehicle, and then we'd have to write another search warrant to then actually do the search. And then the Boyd-Hubbell is kind of undid how we were able to prosecute delivery of controlled substance. And I believe that the legislature is working on fixes on that as well. And then Senate Bill 48, that goes into the jail. We have a wonderful partnership with CBH, providing medication-assisted treatment. Senate Bill 48, really reduces the number of people that can be housed in jail while their case is pending. So that means a lot of people that could benefit from programs in the jail are not being able to access that. You already mentioned that there's no local detox facility. Detox is, especially with fentanyl, become a real major medical concern, and it needs skilled people to help someone go through the withdrawal process. We don't have hardly any inpatient treatment here. There is some private that's very expensive, but does not reach many people, and that's unfortunate. I'd like to see more funding statewide for treatment for those people that are in custody, whether it's in jail or in state prisons. That's a great time to capture someone when they're sober, And I'm really grateful again for the partnerships we have locally. I think it's fairly unique. In fact, I know it is. Again, I'm grateful. We have great teamwork. State funding for supervision of misdemeanors was removed. We need to get that back because many times when someone pushes a shopping cart with $900 of clothes out of Fred Meyer's, it's related to their substance abuse. Now we can no longer provide treatment services to people because they will not be on supervision. And of course, we already know that fentanyl is widely available. It's super cheap, it's super addictive, and it is creating terrible health outcomes for people. Currently, I don't think there's a lot of concern from people that are using about law enforcement disrupting their activities for things that I already mentioned. We are still seeing people getting arrested, oftentimes for more serious crimes than if we were able to catch them with drugs and get them into drug court. So I think that's a little bit unfair. That's kind of like the deinstitutionalization where we didn't provide treatment for people, and now they're because of their mental health issues finding themselves in custody, which is pretty unfair. And then of course we have a defense attorney shortage. So many people are being arraigned on charges, but the case is not proceeding because there's no defense attorney to represent them. So that's certainly a challenge. And I think that there's no real clear plan from the state to improve access to direct treatment. There's a lot of supports and those have tremendous value, but we also need to find a way to get more people into actual treatment programs.
Thanks, Sheriff. Kelly, is there anything that you would like to add in regards to juvenile?
As in the realm of juvenile justice, there was zero consideration for when 110 was developed and brainstormed. There was zero consideration for the impact on the youth population. Historically, we capture a significant portion of youth that are in need of services through law enforcement contact. And that wasn't considered at all. We view those as opportunities, right? Ultimately, the goal of juvenile justice and the reason why it exists is to prevent further penetration in the adult system, right? So if we have an opportunity when they're younger, when they're more impressionable, when they haven't advanced deep into addiction or criminality, then we likely have a better opportunity to prevent penetration into the adult system. That wasn't considered. We have zero recourse for a kid. It's harder right now to go, buy Sudafed than it is to get illegal narcotics for kids. So it's a challenge for us we don't take them to court. We handle all of those cases informally. If they choose not to participate, then there's nothing we can do about it. We can't compel them into treatment, which has seen a significant reduction in our actual treatment beds, because if there is no referral base, those treatment beds dry up, or they shift to something else where they can keep their doors open. And so that has been a significant impact of 110. It's frustrating. We've been able to pivot. We've been able to provide services and get kids connected to some kind of treatment. The challenge that I have is a lot of the use that we're seeing is self-medication of a greater mental health issue that we're not able to tap into because they're not with those professionals that are able to get them in the correct form of treatment, to where they can actually work on their mental health, which is likely what they're medicating. So that's one of our main challenges. The Directors Association, Juvenile Directors Association has been part of some of the 110 rewrite or fixes, hopefully. We would like to see some changes to where we can actually get these kids the treatment and services that they need. Our goal is never punishment. It's a conduit to services. That's our goal. So that's about all I have.
Thanks, Kelly.
Mhm.
So, in regards to next steps, our community partners, are continuing to have conversations. The burn funding is very specific on the services that can be provided with the dollars that, were allocated to us. And so recognizing that substance use crisis in our community is a multifaceted approach, we're looking at possible other funding streams that might be able to address, help address some early prevention, as well as identifying what other early prevention services exist and what our needs are. And one of the things that we've talked about is implementing a SIM workshop, which is something that many of our partners participated in several years ago, specific to mental health. And so this would be specific to kind of the substance use and the services for substance use and youth prevention that might be available. So as you can see, there are great things happening with the funds that came from Measure 110, but there are still concerns that are had. Our community partners work closely with our law enforcement partners, and everybody recognizes the great work, but also the challenges. And we'll continue to work together to make sure that we're doing the best to serve our community. I don't want to take up too much more time because we have a busy schedule, but are there any questions or final thoughts that you all might have for us?
Do we have any questions? Commissioner Thompson?
Well, thank you for this presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, so Amy said it, it's a lifelong process. And we've, as a society, especially in Oregon, have played cheap, thinking that we don't have to pay for people's needs. And those needs have festered and gotten worse. How do we do what the sheriff says and continue to have community conversation that emphasize enough structure so that addicts who are not thinking properly because they're addicted feel the necessity and the support to move into recovery? I mean, I think, Amy, you're nodding. Can you help me here? How do we organize ourselves to continue the progress we've made, get the funding we have to have, and repair our communities so that we turn this around?
Oh, that's a really, really big topic. But I guess I want to say, like, I think the Measure 110 is sort of an iterative process, right? Like, it didn't quite hit the mark the first go around. It did bring funding into the system. It didn't necessarily put it in all the places that we need, but there is a connection between the law enforcement system and the treatment system. And sometimes you need the law enforcement system to help people who aren't going to seek treatment on their own. Most of the folks in recovery who work in my organization say they wouldn't have gotten into recovery if they didn't have the fear of prison hanging over their heads. That being said, I think that we can do this in a much more gentle way than what we've done historically. And speaking to Kelly's point, like, I think for youth, like, we got to get way ahead of this. And he's talking about kids with mental health problems, and I think that's true, but I think even more broadly than that, we're talking about kids who are experiencing a lot of emotional suffering and pain. And how do we create systems that support kids to deal with that pain so that not every single last one of them needs a counselor to be successful, if that makes sense. Like, we We need to thread our society together a little bit better so that we don't have so many kids hanging out there on their own.
Well put. Is there any other comment or question at this time?
The sheriff has his hand.
Yeah.
Is the sheriff?
I just say, Commissioner Thompson, I believe our county is unique. And I already touched on it a little bit, but the relationships that we have and the cooperation and coordination of effort is pretty unique. When I talk to my peers around the state, they aren't meeting with the members of the burn. They're not all putting their heads together and figuring out how they can best serve the unique needs of their community. And that's something that we're doing here. And I think you heard some wonderful stories today that shows what we're doing. So we're doing it grassroots the best we can, and we're gonna continue to hone our efforts to provide the best services possible with the resources we have.
Well, and may I, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sheriff, I agree with that. Effective compassion so that there are sidebars and consequences and support, all of that. And that tenderness that Amy mentioned, it has to be there. You know, I'm always concerned about firefighters because when we talk about people are concentrated often in cities, they're scattered all over the county. I heard our health department representatives say that now we're getting more services all over the county. What firefighters are volunteers? I mean, how do we support the people who are bearing the brunt of a lot of things outside the cities in rural Clatsop County? I mean, I hope that's on your impossible but still have to be addressed list. Can you talk about that a little bit, about the role of firefighters and EMTs in dealing with substance abuse and I would say being part of the conduit to treatment?
So I don't know if that's specific to the sheriff or specific to just in general what the burn group is doing, but I think, you know, from the referral process and all the community partners that we have engaged in this, that identifying those who are needing services, everybody is working together. And so if there is somebody who is observed as struggling, whether they would qualify for the burn funding or not, there are so many partners who are constantly collaborating together in an effort to find the services that are necessary. So I can't speak specifically in regards to, you know, fire and EMT volunteers specifically, but I can say in generalities, all populations are trying to be reached by all the community partners who are working in different ways. And I don't want to speak for Francesca, but Iron Tribe Network works in Columbia County, Marion County, and there might be a couple others, and Helping Hands also is in multiple counties. And, you know, they have mentioned on more than one occasion that the partnerships in Clatsop County and working together are unprecedented in comparison to the other counties that they work in. And so I think that you have a compassionate community of service workers who are doing everything they can to provide services to all county residents.
That's really wonderful. Now, how do we get more money?
We leave that to you.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have any additional questions or comments?
This is Lisa, Public Health. I'll just briefly quickly say, for the rural fire departments, EMTs and such, OHA through the Saves Life Oregon and the Clearinghouse, there is special funding available for those special taxing districts that can obtain naloxone. And so part of what we do as the members of the leadership team for Saves Life Oregon is to help connect those special taxing districts to have access to naloxone for their districts and such. We don't provide the mental health support for those individuals and stuff, but we are able to provide them access to naloxone.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? We really appreciate the thorough presentation today and talking about the two sides of the coin. And we really are thankful and grateful to our community partners for all you're doing and all the successes that have been celebrated today. I do want to make sure we're providing the tools for our law enforcement to do their job. And so that integration has yet to happen, but I do appreciate being able to highlight the issues and talk about the complexity of this problem. So thank you very much for being here. We'll move on to the next item, which is Classic Behavioral Healthcare Uniontown Permanent Supportive Housing and Office Building on page 20. And Executive Director Amy Baker.
Hi, everybody. It's me again. For the record, Amy Baker, Executive Director of Classic Behavioral Healthcare. And I am going to share a PowerPoint on what the project is looking like so far and the timeline. We will see if I can successfully do it right. Does it look right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So as you all know, Classic Behavioral Healthcare has been working on permanent supported housing for like 4 years. And we are so much further along than we ever have been. And I just want to give you an update on our progress. As you know, we purchased a lot last fall. It is located between the KFC and the Motel 6, and it's across from the Orange Smoke Shack. We have been working with our architect on the design of the building. We've been working very closely with the city in order to ensure that the design is gonna meet the city standards. And I mean, basically what you can see is that we have a first floor of is going to be office for our open door program. So this is the program that we have that primarily supports folks with serious mental health issues. So we'll have a lot of staff on site, particularly during the business hours. And then the upper two floors are studio units, with one apartment being a resident manager apartment. They'll have a 1-bedroom apartment, and that person's role is just to kind of make sure that everything's running smoothly during the after hours. You can see this is the front side of the building on Marine Drive. And the bridge is over here, and this is the back side of the building. Just to share a little bit about what the office design looks like. These will be the offices for the open door program staff. We'll have a big kitchen so that open door clients and the residents can do, like, Thanksgiving dinners and events like that. We'll have a big common space that the residents and open door clients will be able to use. Open door clients, not all residents will be open door clients. Like, they have the option of being in services or not. That's part of federal requirements around housing funding, but obviously we will strongly pursue and encourage them to be clients. And then here we have offices for property management as well as housing retention specialists. So if we have folks who are in housing who are not enrolled with Open Door, they'll have specific staff to ensure that they're doing things like paying bills and making appointments. And one of the things that can happen with folks is they get pretty isolated in their rooms, and they kind of like all of us, when we have too much time in our own head, you don't do well. So staff will encourage them to come out, do a movie night, try to do things to help folks like function as well as they can. And there'll be a range of residents who are living in this building. It'll be people who are working and holding jobs to folks who are fairly disabled and who are living on Social Security. I know there's no way you can see this other than there's a bunch of little units. And so it consists of ADA units that allow folks with wheelchairs to be housed. Some of the bigger units, the type A, and then the smaller ones are not. The smallest size of the units are about 365 square feet, and the bigger ones are around 450. And the first floor and the second floor are pretty much the same, minus the third floor has the manager apartment right over here, which is a 1-bedroom. We want to entice somebody into that position and to ensure they're happy and that they're going to stay, because I think that will help, maintain the functionality of the building and the milieu and all of that stuff. So where we are in the process, actually, let me start with this because this feels like the biggest milestone. We've actually secured all the funding that we need in order to do this project. And that includes, we got a grant from Columbia Pacific, CCO. We've got 2 grants from Oregon Health Authority. We are getting funding from Oregon Housing and Community Services. That's both for the construction, but it's also for ongoing operations, which will fund the housing retention specialists. We have some tax exempt bonds and also low income housing tax credit. And because a lot of this stuff is new for CVH, we've never done this kind of housing project before. We are going to do so in partnership with Evelyn because they do this all the time. And so we will work together to ensure that CVH follows through on all the federal compliance things that we need to in order to stay clear with the housing investors. In terms of timeline, we go to the Planning Commission hearing and I think it's next Tuesday. We have Landmarks Commission hearing in March. We submit our permittal in May, and the goal is to close on financing and to actually break ground October 2024, which is coming right up, and having construction complete by 2025. And the partners who are involved in this project are obviously us. Evelyn, who has done these types of projects all over the state, Walsh Construction, who's also done these projects all over the state, and they were the ones involved in the Trillium House in Warrenton, and then TVA is our architectural firm that's been working on the design. So do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for Executive Director Baker? Commissioner Thompson?
Well, this is amazing. This is something you've worked on so long. And when you say you got all the funding done and you got a plan in place to keep right with the accountability so that the funding continues.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah, I had no idea when I started how labor intensive all of this was going to be, but it's obviously it's worth it because we'll be able to house people at 30% of area median income, so the folks who are living there can actually afford their housing. I really like this building is an important part of the continuum of care, so that as people go through services and they have a place where they can live, and some folks will want to live there permanently and others will want to stay for some period of time and then move on, and both of those options are okay.
Wow. Do you have a waiting list?
I don't think we've started a waiting list for it yet. No, we're about 1.5 years out.
I know. And you don't have underground parking, so hey, no problems, right?
No, underground parking is very expensive.
Kidding. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Do you have any other questions, comments? Well, thank you, Executive Director Baker. Appreciate getting to look at the building. I think it's an attractive building too. I like the design, and certainly an aggressive timeline as well. So you're planning on getting started in October of this year. That's great. Well, good luck on all your efforts.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you being here today. Thanks for the presentation. We'll move on to the next item, which is the Project Turnkey Columbia Inn Operators Update, page 32.
Hi
And we
again.
have, Viviana Matthews is here again as well, Executive Director of Clatsop Community Action. I'll turn it over to Viviana.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, County Commissioners, for having me and letting me present Columbia Inn. So I do have a presentation.
Down on the bottom, you should be able to hit share screen.
Thank you.
Not that I'm good at it though, so.
Are you able to see my screen? Yeah, you have.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
We are.
All right. Thank you. Monica, take notes. Sorry. All right. So Columbia Inn, it's the shelter that we have. Let me see here if I can. Oh, there you go. Who do we serve at the Columbia Inn? The Columbia Inn is a shelter, year-round shelter, and we serve primary families with children, individuals who are fleeing domestic violence, youth 18 to 24, people with mobility disabilities, Latinx, and LGBTQ+, and of course, veterans. So the Columbia Inn is possible because of many different sources and because of you, all of you commissioners and Plaza County, because of you applied and received Project Turnkey fundings that allowed Plaza County to buy the property, Columbia Inn. And then CCA and the county received fundings from the emergency declaration for homelessness. We also received some fundings from Measure 110, as I mentioned before during the burn presentation. We also used Plaza County federal funding programs that we received, and our discretionary funding, our internal funding that CCA has, and the state as well. And how does the Columbia Inn project works? Mainly it's a community partner efforts that all the community partners refer individuals and families that fit the demographic that I mentioned previously. We have created between 64 and 70 and 67 beds that are we currently have at the inn. We have approximately an average of 50 people per day, and people that stay, they can stay as long as from 30 days to 6 months. Depends on the needs. And we have 17 rooms that are dedicated to families, and then the other rooms are congregate shelter, which means families they have one room per family, and the congregate shelter we have up to 6 people per room. And how does it, what comes to next once we have housed somebody from the street to the shelter? What's the next step? So we have one dedicated case manager, 100% of her time. It's dedicated to all the families and people who live at the shelter to help them connect to permanent housing. And the case manager works on, she customized the different goals for the families to be able to accomplish to obtain permanent housing. She connects them to the different resources in Plaza County and outside Plaza County, per se, somebody who is a homeless and a veteran homeless, then we place them at the Columbia Inn, and then the Plaza County Veteran Service Officer works with the veterans to make sure that they are filing for any kind of claim they may have through the VA. We also, the case manager also navigates the housing challenges and the barriers that the families and individuals might have to obtain permanent housing. So, as of October 17th, that's the day we open, to the beginning of January, we had already moved 5 households from the street to the shelter to permanent housing. And out of those 5 households, 1 was seniors, 5 were adult, and 11 children. And so when we have how somebody is able to stay at the Columbia Inn, it's just by referral only. We are not letting people walk to the inn and obtain a room. As I mentioned before during the burn presentation, one of the key components to success is having the collaboration between all the agencies that provide services to the unsheltered population here in Clatsop County. And those agencies which are the Harbor, Clatsop County School Districts, Clatsop Behavioral Health, Columbia Memorial Hospital, Providence Hospital, Clatsop County Law Enforcement, and Oregon Department of Human Services all have rights to refer clients to the Columbia Inn to obtain a bed, essentially. And then we do, it's a shelter, it's a low barrier shelter. We do have crises, we do have emergencies, and we do have intervention. And the people, because it's a low barrier shelter, the people who stay in there have many barriers, and they have to navigate through extremely complex situation. So that's why it's essential to have a case manager there to work directly with the people who are staying to address many of those barriers. And going back to the emergencies and crisis, when the incidents happen inside the inn, the outcome of the incidents it's better outcome while person is inside shelter instead of the street. So that's why it's important for us to provide shelter for people who are unhoused. So then we can all work together to address all those barriers that people are having. The Columbia Inn serves as a safe haven and emergency shelter for specific target population, as I mentioned before. And then we're just, CCA is extremely proud of the project, and we're so grateful to every single one of you to allow us to provide services to our community. Do I have any questions or comments?
The Commissioner Thompson.
Just one, Mr. Chair. Director Matthews, this is another notable achievement. Congratulations and thank you right back. Do you have any idea of the unmet need for the kinds of services that you're providing here at the Columbia Inn?
Well, housing is number one. So I'm so excited about CVH building this complex. So that's gonna help us to address the housing, some of it, right? Because of, not all of them, but most of our clients are also clients of CVH. So they'll be able to be referred to their apartment complex. So housing is number one. And also detox, that we talked about it during Monica's presentation, detox centers. It is a low barrier shelter, so people are not able to consume while they are at Columbia Inn, but that doesn't mean people are clean and sober. So detox and mental health providers, health providers. We have a great partnership with the Clatsop County Public Health. They bring in the mobile clinic to the inn twice per month to be able to address some of medical needs that people might have. So it's just working together to find different solutions and different funding sources to be able to provide some of those services to our unsheltered population.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I hope that the board engages with the staff so that we can get the size and shape of the funding needs. Because we've been doing strategic planning, which I think is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And we're doing it iteratively, which is even better because we didn't do it just one and done. But I'd like to see us go into the area of looking at how much do things cost that would actually address the needs in our community, because I think that's the logical next step. We see something about the scope. We see some things about it, but once we get serious about looking at the real cost of things, then we can move ourselves forward. I think that'll help focus and motivate and empower us. So let me give you another difficult challenge and ask us to look at the money.
May I address your comment about the cost of it?
Yeah.
Our annual budget for the Columbia Inn, it's about $700,000. And we are right on target. So thank you.
Well, sure, because we're about to head into budget season. So as we're looking at the budget we have, I think that also, in my mind anyway, kind of naturally calls us into the budget we need if we're going to do the kind of job we're committed to doing. Because I like problems, because we can solve them if we identify them, I hope.
That is completely correct. However, though, I am not expecting to receive the fundings from Clatsop County entirely. My job is to go and look for different type of funding source so we can go ahead and continue our work. So thank you. But I love having your support. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, you certainly do. We do appreciate all you're doing, Executive Director Matthews. And yeah, it is another example of collaboration. You see all of the referring agencies that have been involved, and it's really heartening to see families, that are being helped. And I know I see some when I'm going to work in the morning that I know they're waiting for the bus or going to school. I mean, it really is. It's great that that's meeting that need in our community.
Right. And as of today, we have 22 children under the age of 18. 22.
Wow.
Yeah. And may I share a success story about the Columbia Inn? It's not in my slide.
Please. Yes.
So we used to order our meals, our dinners from the county jail, and we paid about $3 per meal. And then when we had Christmas, CCA Board of Directors decided to do the Christmas dinner themselves for everybody who been at the shelter. Well, not only the CCA employees saw that and wanted to partake, but also the people who live at the shelter. So from that moment on, the families who live at the shelter, along with the CCA employees, we cook dinners every night for everybody at the shelter.
Wow.
To me, that is sense of community all around. And even the kiddos take turns. They made a homemade pizza a couple weekends ago. So all of that is a sense of community that is so much needed, especially for the unsheltered population. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What a great story. We have any other comments, questions? Well, thank you very much, Executive Director Matthews, for all you're doing, and really appreciate the update on Project Turnkey and the Columbia Inn.
Thank you. I'm not able to do it alone. I cannot do this without your support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is HB 3197, Clear and Objective Standards for Housing. This is on page 48 of our agenda. And our Community Development Director, Gail Henriksen, is here. So Gail?
Yes, good morning, Chair and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to wrap up our discussion today with more information about housing and the things that the county will be working on to help move that conversation forward and the production forward. This project is tied to some legislation that was adopted in 2023 that will mandate that the county adopt clear and objective standards for all types of housing prior to July 1st of 2025. It started out several years ago that this requirement was applied to certain cities and only for certain types of needed housing. In 2017, that got expanded to all cities for all housing, and now it's moved on to the unincorporated areas where we'll be looking at our rural residential lands, our non-resource lands, and our rural communities. So we, as staff, have started this work with the Planning Commission, and I wanted to make sure that your board was part of that conversation. And so to that end, I'm going to be sharing my screen here to kind of walk you through the schedule that we've proposed with the Planning Commission. We began our initial overview with the Commission in December of last year. We have progressed so far through Article 1, which is primarily looking at definitions, ways that we can incorporate more illustrations into the definitions to make things easier to understand. We've also been looking at taking obviously things that are not clear or cannot be objectively measured out of those definitions, taking regulations out of the definitions so that you don't have to go to a separate part of the code to find out what the regulations are for a particular type of use. And we did that in January. This past week, the week before, we began looking at Article 2, which is going to be broken into two parts. Article 2 deals with our permitting processes and the different types of requirements that go with that, including public notification, public hearing, and the different levels of review. And so we've begun that conversation. We are looking at some procedural changes as part of this process. One example would be what we currently call a development permit. When someone comes in for a house, we review their plans, we sign off on the zoning, the setbacks, the building height, and we call it a development permit, but it really doesn't allow you to build anything. So we're going to be changing that to a zoning review, which is really what it is. It makes it clearer for the public to understand this is not a permit to build something. This is just your zoning checklist. You take it with your building plans to the building department and they issue you a permit to build something. So it's going to be looking at those types of processes. Where can we simplify them? Where can we put things in plain language? And some of that's challenging when you're dealing with language that's coming straight from ORS, but we're making the best attempt that we can. And you'll see as we work through the schedule, we've put in quarterly updates for your board, and we've already scheduled those with Teresa into the work session. So we're here today at February 21st. We will be moving on through March and April, looking at the second half of Article 2, and then moving on to Article 3, which deals with things like parking, lighting, oceanfront setbacks, non-conforming uses. Some of this work we've really done recently. We've updated our parking regs, we've updated the non-conforming uses or are in the process of that. But just going back and taking another look to make sure that we can make things the most clear and objective as we can. And then you'll see that we are coming back to your board again in June of this year with another update after we work through Articles 2 and 3. And then over the summer, we're going to be really delving into some of the meat of the zoning code, which are all the zoning districts and the different uses that are permitted. Going through that, we will be looking to bring back the tables that we had originally put together when we merged the standards and the zoning code back in 2020. The tables really help clarify things for people, makes it easy to find information, makes it easy to understand what you're looking for when all you're doing is going across and down instead of flipping through 50 different pages of text. And then going through our special districts in September and finishing that up in October. and then doing another presentation to your board on October 16th. And then in November, we will begin wrapping this up with Article 6, which are in our environmental regulations. I would suspect there won't be a lot of work on Article 6 because most of it is an area applies to areas that doesn't permit housing, but we're going to just take a look through it and see if there's anything that we can clarify there as well. And then at that point, we will begin the notification process. So we are going to be sending a 35-day notice to Department of Land Conservation and Development, as we're required to do. Coming back one more time in January of 2025, which seems incredibly far away, but we'll be here before tomorrow. And coming back for one final review before we actually get into the public hearing process. Our goal, if all goes according to plan, is your board would conduct the second public hearings at the end of March. We have a 30-day period before the ordinance would become into effect. And so hopefully by May 1st, a couple of months ahead of the mandated deadline, we would be through the process. If there are appeals to the Land Use Board of Appeals after your board's decision on the ordinance, those are going to add additional time and may push us out of compliance at that point, but staff will have completed the work that we can do to meet that deadline. So again, I just wanted to kind of bring this to your board's attention. This is going to be different but related from the Law Duck housing amendments that we talked about last week and have been talking about. So that Law Duck amendment process is voluntary, and that's something that your board has chosen to take on and have staff undertake. This one is mandated by state legislation, and it's looking at slightly different things than what our proposed Law Duck amendments are looking at, which are geared more towards production and permitting process. This clear and objective standards track is going to be looking at a lot more and at very specific language things. So that is my presentation. I want to thank you for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Community Development Director Henriksen. I really appreciate the direction we're going here. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. My Chinese professor of Chinese history used to say, gradually, gradually. So I want to thank you for your gradual work on this, because it has this sense of logic and clarity and fairness behind it. I mean, I think that's what we're all after. You know that I've got some neighbors with some concerns about changes that are not under their control. They're concerned about communication and what's going to happen without their being able to say no to their neighbors. That's something that I think will be an ongoing discussion, because I think that's common all over the state. One of the things that two things they're concerned about is the infrastructure, the capacity of freshwater, wastewater, stormwater, roads, but also the use of the housing. So there is the strong urging on the part of many of my neighbors to ask for the institution of caps on short-term rentals and other kinds of restrictive language on the uses for the increased housing. Can you help me understand how all of those concerns and issues will be woven seamlessly, as you have done so far, into the documents that basically control our use?
Yeah, I will try to address that, Commissioner Thompson. I'm pretty sure that my weaving probably has some holes in it and it's not as finely woven as you suggest, but thank you. So we're looking at, again, at two separate projects. So with the Law Duck amendments, where we've discussed moving duplex units, for example, from a type 2 to a type 1, and that change in procedure, the change in notification, there will still be a sign-off required by the utility districts, the fire districts, the water district, the sewer district, or septic, if that's the case. But that special district is verifying that they have capacity to serve that new unit. Additionally, at least 45 days before we bring any of this to a public hearing, those voluntary law duck amendments, we have to send a notification to the special districts, and they have a 45-day comment period. So during that time, if concerns are raised, then there may be a separate process we have to go through to discuss the comments with the special district, and if needed, enter into specific, I can't think of the exact term they're called, but specific agreements that will address those utility concerns. So that's one side of this process. With the language, with the clear and objective, what we're not looking to increase density or change housing types. There may be some procedural changes, as I discussed, with changing a development permit to a zoning review, when that's really what it is. That type of thing, but it wouldn't increase density or allow new types of uses. What it's really meant to do is take out language that says a property owner shall, to the maximum extent possible, things that you can't quantify, or the property owner should preserve vegetation. So there's no quantification there. So those are the types of things that we're trying to eliminate. We want to make it very clear that if somebody comes in for a housing development, whether it's a single family home or a subdivision or multifamily units, that they understand from the get-go what exactly will be expected. You have a 25-foot setback. You have to, and this is an example, save 25% of the trees on your site. You have to provide a 14-foot road. So it is spelled out and it is quantified. It's none of this, well, you should center the road as much as possible and try to save as many trees as you can. And so we have to get rid of that. And we don't have a choice on that.
Sounds like healthy communication to me.
In many ways it is, yes.
Any other comments, questions? Well, again, appreciate the direction that we're headed here and hard work of the Community Development Director and the staff. Thanks for all you do, Gail.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your support.
And lastly, I think that's all we have on our agenda, correct, County Manager? Do we have anything else that we need to bring? Well, I really appreciated the presentations, the updates today. There's a lot going on in Clatsop County, and it doesn't happen without good leadership and collaboration with so many of our community partners. And I'm so glad that so many could join us today and describe about their successes and what they're doing.
And Commissioner, if I just might, just real quickly, part of the journey here is that we're doing things that haven't been done before. And so it has really been starting at step one, which was, identifying, I think to what Commissioner Thompson was saying, identify what the need is, and then what are the systems, the structures, and the infrastructure needed to really do something different, right? Status quo begets status quo. And so if you want to do something different than the status quo, then you have to ask yourself, then what else? And I think the process of asking what else is not a linear process, and it's not a quick one. And so I just think that we need to really acknowledge that we are doing it differently than a lot of other counties, because we have a whole team of collaborators that are at the top of their, fields, who are thinking out of the box, who are trying to leverage as much as we possibly can. And I think we're getting better at telling our story, because that's what helps us get the funding that we need. And that process is ongoing. I mean, we're just transitioning from one process to the next process to the next process. And so I think that, we're obviously getting better at a lot of this. But as you have heard today, the challenges are not diminished. They're getting greater. So.
No, well summarized. I agree. Commissioner Thompson.
Just want to say thank you for the wonderful organizational development. I mean, it's a small phrase, but it's a big reality. Thank you. Well done.
Well, not having anything else on the agenda, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the day.